Thanks for listening to the ArtTactic podcast. I'm your host, Adam Green. I can't believe the year is almost coming to an end. The final major art fair of the year is just a few weeks away in Miami. Of course, I'm speaking about Art Basel Miami. And after that concludes, the art market almost comes to a screeching halt for the end of the year. I think Art Basel Miami is still, without a doubt, the most important art fair in the U.S., not only for the caliber of galleries and the quality of art on view, but also for the sheer number of people who attend. It's a great opportunity to see people and strengthen relationships with galleries, collectors, and others in town for the week. Given all of that, the art fair schedule continues to be in flux. New fairs keep popping up, and galleries seem to be more than ever evaluating which fairs make the most sense for them both strategically and economically. In this week's episode of the podcast, we're joined by Bridget Finn, director of Art Basel Miami Beach. Bridget offers a candid look at the energy surrounding this year's fair and the shifts shaping Miami's evolving art ecosystem. We discuss how the city's booming art scene is influencing the fair and how she's approaching the rising costs and pressures facing galleries. We also talk about how her team thinks about innovation for such an established fair and what she's most excited to spotlight in this year's edition. We hope you enjoy the conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Bridget, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure having you. I know you're especially busy at this time of the year with Art Basel Miami just a few weeks away, so we really appreciate you taking a little bit of time to help us preview this year's edition. So, of course, Art Basel Miami remains one of the most anticipated moments of the art world calendar. As you head into this year's edition, how would you describe the overall energy and focus surrounding the fair?
Yeah, so we're exactly 3 weeks out from VIP day number one. So there's so much anticipation at this current moment. I can't, to be honest, I'm sitting in Miami Beach now. Can't wait to get back here in 3 weeks and really open the doors and welcome everyone. I think the energy levels are very high this year. A huge part of my day today is speaking with our galleries and checking in. And of course, I hear from VIPs. And I think there's a ton of enthusiasm about the show. And I think we're in for an exciting fair this year.
So for such an established fair, I think one aspect of it that's relatively new is this big influx of people that have moved to Miami the last few years. I think it's resulted in a real deepening of the local art scene there, from galleries to museums to collectors who now live there full-time or even part-time. How has that local transformation impacted the fair?
It's such an interesting landscape, across the board. Art Basel Miami Beach is now in its 23rd year. So that alone has had such a tremendous impact on the landscape of this city, in terms of, of course, there were incredible collections and institutions here before the show came. A large part of the reason the show came, had to do with that. But I think that there's a baked in appreciation for contemporary and modern art that is not, universal in every place. In Miami Beach, it's absolutely across the board, deeply valued. And I think that, as you've said, the growth in the region of South Florida in the last few years has been tremendous. And really, since I started in this role, I come down very often. I'm based in New York, but I'm here throughout the year. Every time I step foot on the ground, I meet a new group of collectors who have recently relocated again to Miami Beach. Even a collector who's a dear friend I bumped into in Paris, and he told me, I'm in Miami Beach now. So It really is growing all the time. And I think a lot of the people who are choosing to be here, um, collecting art and being interested in, if they're not collecting, they're interested in, the cultural value of what art brings to the table. And so I think they're interested in collecting. I think the landscape is just deepening with an appreciation of art and everything it brings in a market sense, in a community sense, and beyond. And yes, we have galleries popping up. I mean, I will definitely in the next couple days make it to Alapata to see a number of the young spaces that are here. We have El Apartamento, who is joining the show this year with spaces in Havana and Madrid, and now Miami Beach as well. Velotion, who has primarily galleries both in Miami Beach and Alapata, and also in Kiev. We have Nina Johnson, who is joining the gallery sector for the first time. Can't wait to welcome her. So, you know, um, the local scene here really brings so much to the table. Central Fine, I should also mention, has expanded to Salta. So there's really a lot of dynamic and interesting programming happening here that also is a huge part of the show.
Yeah, and you've been with the fair for a few years now, so you're obviously spending a lot more time in Miami and Florida than in the past. I'm there a few times a year for work. I imagine our listeners may come once a year for the fair or every so often for other occasions. It might not be as obvious to us to see all the ways in which the city and even the state are changing from this growth, but I imagine it's really interesting being there for a good amount of time each year to see these changes.
Yeah, and I guess something that I also try to, I feel like, hot tip, don't miss the support that there is for artists that are here. And that's also something that's kind of unique these days. Is there are so many fantastic collectors. There are also so many incredible artists that have chosen Miami as their home. And you see, there's unusual opportunities for, we have Ulite, which is offering residencies to artists, Bake House, which offers, I think, about 80 residencies for completely for free for up to 3 years at a time. So the support systems for artists are also really robust. And I think that also, where the artists are, it's kind of where we all want to be. So that also helps kind of deepen the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about the artists, and they are usually overlooked when people discuss the transformation of the art scene in Miami. So I want to ask you a bit of an inside baseball kind of question pertaining to art fairs. There's been a lot of conversation lately about the art fair model and how much galleries have come to rely on it. I think a lot of these conversations may not have been happening publicly, but they certainly are over the last year or so in conjunction with the art market beginning to soften. Participation in fairs, they can be incredibly costly, especially for smaller and mid-sized galleries. I'm wondering, how have you been thinking about that as you determine things such as booth prices and make other decisions about the art fair structure? I'm wondering how you've been thinking about that, especially as you determine things such as booth prices and make other decisions about the fair structure.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, is of the utmost importance and priority to everyone on our Basel's team, right? So, from our CEO Noah Horowitz to Vincenzo De Bellis, Vincenzo working with the show directors to really kind of think through strategies of support. This is a huge priority for us, and it's something that we discuss all the time, to be very honest. So, we do have some structures in place and we rolled out more this year. And this topic is not going away for us. We're really invested in hearing from the galleries on how best to support them and what they need to succeed in our shows. For me, that show is Miami Beach, and a huge just portion of my time day to day goes to talking to them and figuring out how to deliver what they want from the platform that is Art Basel Miami Beach. So we do have, you know, um, a sliding scale model, which I think not everyone knows, which means the more space you take, the more costly it is per square meter. So the larger booths at the show are more, expensive per square meter than a smaller booth, right? And that is a way to try and soften the costs for galleries who are new to the main gallery sector. We also have something we call it the step up discount. And basically, it is when a gallery joins the gallery sector for the first time, they receive a 20% discount. The second year, they receive a 10% discount on their booth. So it really does. I mean, that is a meaningful savings. And the hope is that in those couple years where they get their footing, right, where they're kind of evaluating their own price points and where their artists are at and trying to do the math on, making all of these things work, that we're able to support them in getting set up to do that. In terms of Nova and positions, that's also something where we subsidize the cost of those booths to keep them at a very approachable price point. And so I will say it's been many years since we've raised the price on positions, and there's a real reason for that because we want to really welcome the projects that are, most interesting, most valuable to the conversation, as directed by the committee year on year. So continuing to lower the barrier for entry is a huge priority for me. We took away, Meridians, which is our large scale sculpture sector. In the past, Meridians, you have to be participating in another sector of the show to participate with Meridians. We took that rule away. So anyone can now apply to Meridians because we understand also there are a lot of offerings that are available for galleries in terms of fairs and ways to conduct their business. And if someone has an incredible project and they're coming from the other side of the world and they're really interested in bringing an institutionally scaled work to the Americas, we want to be able to receive that project, regardless if they're, also able to do a galleries or a survey booth. So we're constantly looking at ways to lower that barrier for entry and make the fair work for our galleries.
Yeah, and not just speaking about Art Basel fairs here, but art fairs in general, I don't think the conversations about galleries' reliance on the fair model were as prevalent when the art market was incredibly strong and galleries were regularly selling out their booths. In that environment, no one was necessarily questioning the model, or maybe some were, but it wasn't nearly as vocal as it is today. But with the market shifting and becoming softer, it's been interesting. In fact, I've had a few galleries speak with me firsthand to get my opinion about different types of fairs, including smaller or more regional ones, because I do think some galleries, for the first time in a while, are taking a step back and re-examining not only the number of fairs they do each year, but also which specific fairs might make the most sense for them. I don't think these conversations typically apply to a fair like Basel Miami, which is inarguably the strongest fair and the most important fair in the country. But I did notice that a few European galleries that traditionally participate decided to sit out this year. I do think the reporting around that was blown out of proportion in terms of the number of galleries and the caliber of those galleries. But still, I'm curious, how do you interpret that? Do you see that as a reflection of the current state of the art market or more the result of the growing number of fairs around the world? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's so difficult, right? We see these headlines and they are suggestive of so many things that feel very, ominous sometimes. And you're missing the nuance of the conversations behind those numbers, right? And behind the certain names and all of these anecdotes which we can't share. But I will say, there is a different reason why each gallery does or does not do a show. And I mean, something that's not been reported on, I think we have 17 galleries that are returning to Art Basel Miami Beach from Europe this year. Um, and there's a number of, there's New York galleries coming back to the show also. And I think, there's not necessarily, I do think if you look at these, like next year, just for example, you will see a number of galleries that feel missing coming back. You might see someone do something, I think galleries are also starting to really strategically think about, or not starting to think about, right? I mean, people are very sharp about what their artists are doing, how to direct their business, where they need to be when, and we want to support them in that, right? So if there is something that the show is doing well, great. Let me know. We're going to lean into it. If there's ways that we can improve certain aspects of that, I'm all for, feedback. And I think all of the galleries that I have the pleasure of working with know that about me. I'm very in touch because we want the show to deliver, right? But I also think it's not as cut and dry as I think, we're going to have a phenomenal show this year. I think that what I really hope to focus on is all of the galleries who are doing the show and are bringing their absolute A game. I mean, last year was a little bit of it was also a challenging time. And I actually think that the galleries this year have planned so far in advance. I can't tell you how many PDFs I got months ago saying, this is our checklist, this is what we're doing. And the presentations, we have more cabinet presentations than ever, which is, a curated exhibition within your fair booth. So it tends to be solo projects or, something with a much more specific curatorial lean. Um, they are so fabulous in terms of the caliber of the work, and so many of them are like just right on in terms of the galleries carving out who they are, where they're from, what they do well. It's showing through so boldly, and I can't wait to open the doors and to let everyone see that. And there's such nice touch points with institutional shows that are happening around the US at this moment as well. I mean, there's a lot of very exciting things in store. So, yeah, I want to kind of talk up those nice, inclusive points because I think there are so many.
Yeah, definitely. So, since the fair is so established at this point, I'm curious, what are the conversations like that you have with the fair committee and your internal team really throughout the year about how to innovate the fair and how to continue to improve the fair for visitors and galleries?
Yeah, I mean the conversations on sort of innovations and improvements are they never stop, like we have already scheduled our committee feedback meeting, our committee concept meeting, like we are well underway with those things. And as we should be, right? Because I always I always say, like, I feel like I have to preface it when people say, what are you doing to change things? I did inherit an incredible model, right? This platform is really efficient and very effective, but also there's so much change in the world. There's change in collecting habits. There's generational shifts. There is, market ebbs and flows. So we are constantly thinking through strategies of, expanding the show to meet different needs in a robust way. And I think, I come from a gallery background. I had a gallery in Detroit, Michigan. So thinking about entry points and welcoming new buyers, and those are all things that we are constantly working on developing, refining, programs that will really welcome that.
So before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, what are a few things you want to highlight about this year's edition of the fair that you're especially excited about that we haven't touched on already?
Yes, well, I would say, first and foremost, I am most excited for everyone to see the incredible presentations with, the 286 galleries that we are going to welcome. And really that opening day moment, that's my first and foremost. I'm excited we've moved our youngest sectors to the east entrance. So you will see Nova and positions surrounding East Entrance B and bringing them to a threshold, bringing a little bit more attention to our most emerging galleries and artists feels very exciting. We are launching 010, which is our new digital initiative that is spearheaded by Eli Newman, which will be in the same south end of the show as Meridians. So that south end of the show is going to feel really, I mean, very much changed from 2 years ago. It's super active. There's going to be a number of interactive works. It's pulling a whole new, curatorial realm into the show that really hasn't been featured in that way before. We also are having our Art Basel Awards presented with, Hugo Boss. So this will be where the 2025 gold medalists are announced. And I'm very, it's an honor for us to be able to host that in Miami Beach, which will be on December 4th. And of course, conversations. This year, we're doing a whole day of dialogues focused on the intersection of art and sport. And I think, this is going to be this will be also be Thursday. So Malcolm Jenkins, Elliot Perry, Suzanne Lacey will all be part of that day, along with Hans Ulrich Obrist and names that we know and love. So, yeah, I think it's going to be, throughout the week. There's so much discovery to look forward to. There's so many, there's so much content happening just within the MBCC itself. Yeah, it's going to be a busy one.
Absolutely. Well, Bridget, thanks so much again for coming onto the podcast and helping us preview this year's edition of Art Basel Miami Beach. I know you're especially busy this time of year with the fair just a few weeks away, so we appreciate you taking a few moments to speak with us. And if our listeners have never been to Basel, Miami, or they haven't been in a long time, I definitely recommend that you consider going. It's an incredible experience, not only at the fair, but really throughout the city of Miami with so many events going on. Art Basel this year will be from December 3rd through the 7th, and you can buy tickets by visiting artbasel.com.
Our website is the best place to get tickets. And we would be so delighted if everyone came. And Adam, thank you for coming and thank you for having me. Really.
Absolutely. See you soon in Miami.
Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you there.